This is my book. A simplified map of the real world. I'm going to read a story, and this is written in the voice of a 91-year-old woman. So please dial down your disbelief appropriately. To walk where she pleases. Ruth, there you are. Aren't those roses lovely? Those pink ones have a lovely scent. You should pick some to take with you. Come sit here beside me. I want to tell you some things. I've been sitting here thinking about the dead. Oh, don't look so shocked. A woman my age is close enough to dead. It's only natural. People don't talk about death enough. That's why it scares them so. It scared your mother, and she wouldn't let me talk to her about it. She told you I was crazy that day the two of you walked in on me when I was cleaning the garage after Lester killed himself. Only she chose her words carefully. Dementia, senile dementia, and me barely out of my 60s that day. As if my own daughter could hide the truth of what she was saying with something other than plain English. As if my ears weren't as sharp as ever and maybe a little sharper. As if a college education gave her the license to be condescending. Never mind that it was our hard work, Lester's and mine, that put her through college. Vera always thought she was better than me, and a college education only made that worse. If I had it to do all over again, I would have sent Vera off on a mission to Africa and spent that money on remodeling the kitchen. Not that it isn't a tragedy that she died when you were, what, 14? I know you loved her, as did I, Ruth, as did I. At first I thought it was a mistake when she named you Ruth. Ruth is a serious name, a name from the Bible, but it is an adult's name, not a baby's name or a child's name. But you were a serious child. Even as an infant, you had the sense of someone with an old soul. I was there the morning of your first day in the world, and it was me who dressed you the very first time while Vera slept after giving you birth. They say babies don't really see when they're newborn, but you were looking all around and taking it all in. You hadn't cried much. Very little fuss came out of you during the whole business, and when it came time to dress you, I got the little shirt ready to pull over your head. You held your arm up and put it right through the sleeve. The first one could have been an accident, but then you looked right at me and held up your other arm like you had been doing this for years. So Ruth has always suited you. I'll give your mother that one. And no one who knew you when you were little had the poor sense to call you Ruthie. We're alike in that way. No one ever called me Addie, not even my mother. It was always Adelaide. Such is the power of a well-chosen name. But Vera always called me Mama, as if she could make me less than I am with those two syllables. I am here to tell you that a daughter lacks that prerogative. I am here to tell you that Vera was not the only one who knew some words either. Anyone who reads can have a vocabulary, and we have always been a family of readers. You must have been 12 the year that Lester killed himself. Vera always said he took his own life, but I haven't got the time for such niceties. Dead is dead, and calling it something else never brought anybody back, so what's the point? But you were born in 49, I know that much, so you must have been 12. 1961, my God, what a year that was. Lester retired in 52, so we had 9 years together where we could do pretty much what we wanted. Mostly what Lester wanted was to go fishing, and mostly he went alone because mostly what I wanted to do was garden. I don't know what happened to Lester, why he had to kill himself. He didn't leave a note, and he was never much of a talker. Early on, when he was courting me, in the first years we were married, he wasn't quite so silent. And he was a good listener. That was one of the reasons I married him. But he was never the same after Allred. He saw things in those woods that he wouldn't talk about, and I suspect he did things in those woods that were even worse than what he saw. Shell-shocked, we called it back then. We didn't have a fancy name for it, like post-traumatic stress disorder. A mess like Lester killing himself, I couldn't clean that up all in one day. That day in the garage must have been 4 or 5 months after. There was a layer of oily soot on everything in that garage, and I do mean everything. And I could still smell the exhaust. I felt like if I couldn't clean that exhaust smell out of the garage, I was going to have to sell the house and move to the Whispering Pines, where everyone sits around and talks about their bowel complaints all day long. Can you imagine? At least Lester saved me from having to watch him die in a rest home. I'll give him that. There must have been a half a tank of gas in the car, and of course he was too dead to turn the thing off. I know it sounds hard to say it straight out that way, but even after all these years later, I'm still mad at him for leaving me without even a word to say why. To sneak out of bed in the middle of the night so a person can go kill himself. If that isn't rude, pure selfishness. Vera thought it was Lester I was talking to in the garage that day. I still remember the pity in her eyes when she said, "Mama, Daddy's gone. You have to let go." As if I were not in my right mind. But it wasn't Lester. Lester has never had the courtesy to pay me a visit since he died. I've been told, and on good authority too, the dead don't visit us much anymore because they've forgotten how. But I think Lester is afraid of me, afraid to tell me whatever secret it is that drove him to it. Probably a woman involved in it somehow, although where a 73-year-old man with all the charm of a dried prune finds another woman to put up with him is beyond me, unless he was paying some young tart for her time. But as tight-fisted as Lester was about money for everything except fishing poles, I don't hold that to be very likely. No, it wasn't Lester. It was Sadie Gloss who was there in the garage with me, and now you'll probably call me crazy too. Sadie Gloss was an old Indian woman who lived around here when I was a girl. I took care of her back then, after she got caught up in the big fire, back in 1902 it was. She was badly burnt, but she recovered. We were very close, Sadie and I, and when she finally died, I grieved for her for some time. She came to me one night about a month after they buried her. I saw her just as plain as I see the nose on your face. She told me not to feel so sad, that she was no longer hurting so much, and I shouldn't worry. And after that, I would see her every now and again. She's never been fond of Lester, but when he went and killed himself, it was Sadie who came and took care of me in the dark of the night when no one else was here. I see her now almost every day these last 20 years or so, and maybe you believe me, and maybe you think I'm an old old woman who's lost her mind. But all I can do is tell you what I know. It doesn't matter what you believe about spirits or the Bible or Jesus. All that matters is how you listen. And if a spirit calls to you, then you are chosen. Sometimes I don't so much see her as feel her close by. I hear the clink of the bell on the neck of her lead goat, and I know she's near. She likes foggy mornings because the fog is a balm to the scars she carries from the fire. If I got up early to take a walk the way I used to do sometimes, she'd be there with me. She died walking along Burnt Springs Road, farther down that way toward the turn to Gossard Flats. And she likes to take her flock of goats down there and then walk back up by here to where her cabin was. It's all in how a person listens. Sadie taught me that. Before she died, she told me more than once that white people only listened with their ears, but her mother's people listened with their spirits. What a person hears depends on which world she walks in. And if all she knows is the world of things you can touch, then she never will hear the other world that is all around us all the time. And you're not too old to learn how to do that. Once you get the listening figured out, then talking to the dead is no different than talking to your cat. That day in the garage, I had just come across my old pickle crock. Do you remember how you used to help me put up pickles when you were a little girl? That crock used to be Sadie's, and I was thinking I should put up a batch of pickles, and I would make the good dill pickles that Lester never wanted me to make because he liked his pickles sweet. That's when you and your mother walked in, and I was talking to Sadie about where to get some cucumbers because I hadn't put in a garden that year, what with all the fuss over Lester killing himself. Sadie has free range to walk where she pleases, and she had some ideas about who might have some extra cubes. Sadie wants you to have this pickle crock. She wants you to have it because she sees the kind of person you are, the way you take care of the people around you. You're not like Vera was, all wrapped up in yourself. It was being all wrapped up in herself that brought the leukemia into her blood. I know that sounds hard, and I don't mean that everyone who gets a cancer is all wrapped up in themselves. It's just that Vera's ambition was the way she poisoned herself. She was full of too much ambition. She had ideas about what a woman should be, and those ideas got between us in a way I never could get around. My own daughter, and I suppose I sound like I never loved her at all, which isn't true, because she did some admirable things, Vera did. Teaching school is an admirable thing, and I'm sure in the classroom she wasn't so selfish. She was probably quite a good teacher, because she took pride in everything she did. And she was a good mother to you. I would never say otherwise. What I want from you now is a batch of pickles, dills, made from this recipe right here. Use rock salt and pick the dill from the patch along the edge of my garden next to the raspberries. Get the cucumbers from somebody's garden around here. Don't buy them from the store because they'll charge you an arm and a leg. That Jimmy Alquist down on Gosford Road, he knows how to grow a cucumber. Sadie says to go see if he's got any extra. Try and get them all pretty close to the same size. That's the secret to a good batch of pickles. That's it. Just one more time before I die, I want to taste a homemade pickle. And don't you go getting all weepy on me. Everybody dies, and look at me. I'm 91 years old, and my bones are like peanut brittle. I've had a good enough life, and only the good Lord knows how much time I've got left. Time doesn't mean so much in the next world. That's what Sadie tells me. But here, time is everything, and that's why we suffer so. You just work on how you listen. You learn to listen for me, and you'll hear me. I'm not that easy to shut up. Thank you so much. I have copies of this for sale. Talk to me afterwards if you want. Thanks.